And I know Eric's going to want to chime in on this next topic, which is Occupy Wall Street, an anti-Wall Street movement that started here in New York City but has now spread nationwide. It's been going on for more than a month now. But is their message clear? That's the question we're going to put right now to the author of Shift and Reset, Strategies for Addressing Serious Issues in a Connected Society, Brian Reich. Is it Reich? Rich. Sorry, I got that wrong. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, you know, they've got the microphone, but what do they do with it now that they have it? Do they have a coherent message, and what would you say to them?
I think at present, no. They don't have a coherent message, which is not to say that voicing opposition to the way things are going at the moment isn't necessary and clearly effective. And I don't think they need to necessarily have an end goal either, but they do, if they want to build and sustain a movement that's likely to drive some kind of change, need to outline a couple of immediate steps that can result in some action that people can really see has had some sort of impact.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that they've said whenever the press approaches them and they want to know who's your spokesperson, who's your leader, well, we don't have a leader. It's very important to us that this group remain leaderless. Is that the right strategy?
I would argue no. I think you need to have some leadership, at very least. You need to have some clarity in the voice or some direction coming from at least a segment of that population. Right. Flat organizations on their own are not likely to build into anything.
I mean, as opposed to any, because any random person the camera crew approaches who's never been on camera before, who's not, I mean, there's a lot of different messages that I hear coming out of there. Like, catch somebody who's a little bit, articulate, has been in front of a camera, who can be really emotional about what it is that they're doing, because nobody knows much other than, if you've been down there, it stinks. There's an odor in the air.
That part has gotten out.
That part's, that's it.
There have been some, I think, very articulate people, and I think the key is now they need to elevate those people. You can't just have everyone with a microphone or everyone with a camera grab their own channel. That's what happens in the digital age, and it's not likely to advance things.
But they don't want to elevate those people, and those people don't want to be elevated. It's part of their whole theory. But in any case, you have put together some steps or tips, if you will, for Occupy Wall Street of what they can do. And your first is to establish demands. Now, on their website, they do have some specific demands, like they want a $20 minimum wage, and there are some tax issues there. But go into that more for us, establishing demands.
I think, first of all, some of the demands have emerged in the last couple of days,
right.
In some cases in response to calls for specific demands. So that's good, but I also think those demands have to be realistic. A $20 minimum wage, if it's a reasonable outcome, is still going to take a very long time to achieve. And so we need to see what the steps are that are going to get there. And their help to identify what those steps are going to help policymakers and the media and everyone else who's talking about this to understand what it's going to take to get to the big change. So voicing the big change is great, but articulating what those immediate steps are, those sort of short-term or small victories that lead to something larger, that's going to be important in the short term.
Yeah, but don't you think no matter how social media has created revolutions in other parts of the world, no matter how many people can actually get on a mic and blast out a video to their Twitter followers, no matter how many of them are, that all of the people in the mainstream media and some of the very credible people, you know, in the internet, we can't figure out what they're doing.
Yeah.
If we can't figure out what they're doing, they got a problem delivering the message. What's the point if you got a problem delivering the message? Nobody can figure this out.
Well, I think it's a balance of the substance and the marketing, right? In the digital age, everyone can have a channel, but movement building 101, going all the way back to the analog days, has been you have to stand for something, not just against something. You need to have solutions that are clearly outlined. You need to have some leadership or some guiding voice that people can galvanize around. And then often, and I think this is what they have achieved, you need a spark. You need something that's going to trigger the attention and lead to action. They've got the spark, but when people go looking for more, the risk they run right now is there's not enough there. It's not that there's none, but there's not enough there to keep people engaged, particularly in a world where there's so many competing opportunities to spend time and resources. Should I commit to this or something else? It hasn't been personalized to me. It hasn't been personalized to the sort of mainstream average individual.
See, what I worry about that spark is that what they did, I mean, from a PR person's perspective is they showed up where the cameras already are, Wall Street. It's really accessible to cameras every day, which means they will get press coverage every day while they stay there. I worry about that spark because I don't think we've seen the spark, and the spark might be something that we don't like.
Well, and even so, they brought their own cameras, which I think is one of the unique and exciting things about this in terms of looking at how politics and movement building changes. They know they can be their own media and that it will reach a certain audience. But I think mainstream media as well as digital and social media all are challenged by the same thing, which is you got to give people something to watch. You got to give them a reason to tune back in. So we've seen the protest. We've seen the potential for clash. I don't think anyone wants on any side for this to go into a violent or other stage. But, you know, people will get frustrated at the lack of action, and there's some, I think, some basic, obvious, simple things you can do to just constructively move the conversation.
And I wanted to let Brian continue to discuss those. We talked about establishing demands. You also say mobilize, and then decide who's in charge. And lastly, trust the system, change the system. Mm-hmm. The mobilization seems to have happened. The decide who's in charge, we already talked about a little bit. What do they do here? I mean, if they don't want a leader, where does that leave them? Well,
look, there are established systems and institutions in the United States that make laws and help decide policy. And, you know, if their argument is that those are not working, then they need to participate in cleaning them up. There's an obvious one, you know, coming every November, which is elections. And you've seen some splinter elements of Occupy Wall Street saying occupy the voting booth and things like that. You know, if they can achieve what few organizations are able to achieve, which is extraordinarily high voter turnout or commitment to the electoral process, I guarantee that members of Congress and the White House will respond. And that's part of the mobilizing. Yeah, you can mobilize a demonstration, but can you mobilize meaningful, measurable actions? Can you mobilize not online petition signatures, which are pretty easy these days, but actually having people show up and have constructive meetings with policymakers who don't understand the demands and aren't going to respond to threats or intimidation.
Right. Well, I mean, and that's, I think that last one, trust the system, change the system, is so well put, because in other countries we have these revolutions, the Arab Spring and all that, and what they're fighting for is a system like ours where they have a voice, where they can vote, where they can talk to their politicians and put pressure on their leaders to vote the way they want them to. We have that system. Work within that system.
Yeah,
right?
Look, the system's not perfect,
right?
But it is there to encourage involvement and to respond to popular will. So if people don't like the way Congress is making laws, they can very easily unelect their member of Congress. You don't often see, you know, the passion and the anger connect to the practical steps, the real commitment, and the trust that change will happen over time. The other thing is, you know, you have to recognize that attacking the system, if it's successful, and we saw this with Arab Spring, leaves you without a system, and that's not actually any better. A not incredibly high-functioning system that you can start to improve, maybe on the edges and then get towards the center, that is potential. And there are, I genuinely trust the democratic system. I trust, you know, elected officials, those I agree with and those I don't, that they are there to represent the people, and they know that if they don't, they'll lose their job. So let's take advantage of the system. Let's go in there and let's fix it while we're you know, have the moment, while we have the opportunity before us.
They certainly have the politician's ear right now, I'd say. People are paying attention, so we'll see what happens next. Brian Reich, thank you so much. And once again, you can check out his book, Shift and Reset, Strategies for Addressing Serious Issues in a Connected Society. It changes everything. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, we have a lot more coming up. Stay with us. We'll be right back.